What's up, Star Wars fans and comic book fans? Pete here from Comic Books Transformed, where we talk about the adaptations of your favorite comics into movies and streaming shows. And of course, Star Wars is in all different forms, including the Disney Plus show Ahsoka. Today, my well-dressed partner, Mr. Brian Corsair over there, and I are going to be talking about Ahsoka episode 4. No, yes, there we go. And Brian, I need to talk about your shirt though first.
Sure. Am I really well dressed? I'm just wearing a t-shirt. I mean, you don't know what's going on underneath here.
Oh my God, this just got a lot more sexier. No, here's the deal. I've always been impressed with Brian's clothing. I've known Brian for over 20 years, and he always has these cool shirts.
Yeah, and it's funny because I have anxiety about wearing them these days. I feel like I'm too old to be wearing just like graphic t-shirts all over the place, you know?
Yeah, I understand that anxiety. You know, it's interesting, right? Because when people get super old and now everyone's like covered in tattoo sleeves and have all these crazy tattoos, we always kind of joke about that being like a weird thing when you're like 80 something and wrinkly, right?
Yeah.
But we haven't really reached that point in history yet where men like us are going to be old men.
Yeah, well, I guess. I mean, I'm sure there are people that, are nerdy people that kind of do this kind of thing and they're older than us. I mean,
yes. But I feel like that's sort of like that video game playing, metal listening to, comic book reading guys that we are, these middle-aged dudes that we are. Like, there are older versions of us, but like, the type like us that haven't got to their 60s or anything yet.
Yeah. I mean, obviously that's a time-based thing, but yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Like, do you think that you'll be like in a hospital bed dying with like an EKG meter hooked up to you and you're going to have like a shirt with like Bumblebee on it?
Not Bumblebee, but something like that.
yeah, fuck that guy. But so then can you describe to our audience that's just listening the shirt You're wearing?
So my shirt is Hot Rod from Transformers, and he's wearing basically the costume of Roddy Piper,
yes.
who was my favorite wrestler mainly because of They Live, because I love They Live. So yes. It's just him, and his shirt famously says Hot Rod on it, so it's kind of appropriate.
Perfect. Yes. Yeah. It's really cool looking. It's funny because I was thinking about you this weekend. I went to a market in Taylor, Texas, which is nearby. And there was a stand. People had these 3D printed, just like statues and toys. One of the 3D printed things was a Grogu that was made to look like Ghostface from Scream.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so that's the thing, right? Is that I was thinking about you, like, I record with Danny, and Danny usually just has straight up shirts that are just like the poster of the movie, like the Michael Myers poster from Halloween 3 or something, right? Or wow, I said the one fucking Halloween he's not in. That's bad.
I wouldn't even picked up on it if he didn't say it.
I mean, he's in it in like a video clip real quick, but
yeah.
It's like he's okay. Anyway, so Danny usually wears like the straight up, poster of the movie, but you always wear these things where it's like a combination of like two different things together.
Yes, and I have a purpose behind that.
Okay.
I'm not a very social person. I don't really seek people out, but it's when you're at some place and someone recognizes both things, you kind of feel like you have some connection to that person. It might make it a little bit easier to talk to them, I guess. But if nobody notices it, that's fine. They just don't notice it, whatever. But if you do, you find somebody that's like, holy shit, like I know both of those things.
Yes.
Like that's awesome. Because clearly, I mean, I make a point to buy things if I know both of the most part, if I can. I can't say that that's the case across every shirt I own, but that's kind of like my point.
Yeah. Well, there's like a whole industry of it, right? Like, what's that one website that you use all the time?
TeePublic's one. Ripped Apparel I've used before. Dracula Bite has a lot of nice video game and band things and horror things all mashed up. There's a lot out there, but I think honestly, part of the reason there is so many of these things is because they're unlicensed. Really, like these are just people making these things, they kind of getting around things, and that's probably why you can find these kind of ideas. They're not official in any capacity.
Okay. Well, unless you know the term off the top of your head, I have homework for you for the next episode. If you could figure out what the term is for when they take two different properties and stick them into one image.
A mashup?
Shut. All right, fine. Maybe it is that simple, right? But I don't know. Okay, maybe it is mashup, right? But like, I feel like that it has to work. It has to make sense. And so some of the best examples for shirts that I've seen you have are like the shirt with Prowl from Transformers, who's a cop car, and he's in the pose of RoboCop coming out of the police car, right?
Yeah.
Then there's I don't know if you have the shirt, but I've definitely seen this picture where it's like Grimlock, the Dinobot, but he's like the T-Rex from Jurassic Park coming out of the paddock.
Yeah, I have a hoodie of that. It's the Jurassic Park logo, but instead of the T-Rex, it's Grimlock's outline. Yeah, I have that as well.
Right.
One of my favorites. I actually just rebought a shirt design that I had a long time ago because the shirt just fell apart. It is Bebop and Rocksteady from Ninja Turtles, who I love, and I've mentioned this before. But it's them as Beavis and Butthead.
Oh
so
my God!
It's like the title card of Beavis and Butthead, but it's Bebop and Rocksteady, and it's incredible. And whenever I get it in the mail, I will absolutely wear it on the show at some point.
Nice. That is awesome. It's interesting, right? It might be because I'm your friend. By the way, we're fucking 6 minutes into this Ahsoka review. We're still talking about T-shirts. Who cares? Right?
Oh shit! Was I supposed to watch that?
Oh no! But we're in this review, but I was gonna say that it always seems like it's like Transformers and something else, or like Ninja Turtles and something else.
Yeah, I tend to stick with my go-to things. Transformers is definitely the number one. Ninja Turtles is one. I definitely like to buy Bebop and Rocksteady related things. The Evil Dead is a big thing for me too. Do I have any Evil Dead shirts? I think I only have like a cartoony Necronomicon shirt right now for that. I like Jaws is more a thing of my wife's. Okay. But I have a Transformers and Jaws shirt.
What's the Sharkticon?
Yeah, so the Sharkticon is Jaws and RC is the swimmer.
Oh, that's so hot. Brian, I've been so dissatisfied with like the shows that we've been watching recently that like I feel like we should just make a show that's called Brian's T-shirts. we just talk about your T-shirts. We're almost at 10 minutes with this.
Yeah. I just bought a few more recently because some of them are getting kind of old and they don't fit as well.
Yeah.
So they because they've shrunk, So I go like this and like the shirt's like, hey, there's your whole body in there.
Oh man, I hate that shit. That's the worst because I just keep getting fatter, so it's like easier for that to happen. I'm like,
yep,
oh, God,
exactly.
Yeah. Before we go to Ahsoka, because I still want to talk about this shit with you, I brought up that Grogu with Ghostface because I thought that was a bad example. I feel like it should be two things that kind of make sense going together. Like Grimlock and Jurassic Park makes sense.
Yeah, it can go either way. If it's like totally, completely unrelated and it doesn't even work well aesthetically, I guess it doesn't work. But I don't know. Maybe sometimes. I mean, I'd have to see it honestly to judge it. But I mean, I just like the idea of mashing things together anyway. But you're right. Like I can't think of any intersection between Grogu and Scream. I mean, maybe they both wear robes.
Maybe that's it. Yeah. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, I wonder where they got that idea from. But let's see how I can like kind of transition this back to what we were talking about. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
No, I was going to say that, our friends that we have, some of them have these T-shirts, and we have like Mike Bongiorno. He has like Pop Culture Man Children, and he's a big Star Wars fan. Then we have John Edwards, who he does like artwork and stuff, and I think he does like images from like Star Wars and stuff like that. And these are guys that would be interested in the shirts that we're talking about, but they also have their opinions on the show Ahsoka, which we're finally going to get to at the 10-minute mark here. And Ahsoka, for our last review, Mike Bongiorno said, this show bores me to tears. And then I think like maybe an episode or two ago, John Edwards said, I think the show is really boring. So like, why do you think that these guys who we know are bored by this show?
Well, I can't speak for Mike, but I know, for our friend John, Star Wars is a huge thing for him. That's like, Star Wars for him is Transformers for me.
Yeah.
So it maybe the things you hold dear, you're a little more critical on occasion. That could be it. I mean, I actually liked the last episode
Yes.
of Ahsoka.
Yeah.
And I thought there were some good moments, and it's kind of ramping up a bit. And I don't. I mean, yeah, some of the shows on Disney Plus lately have been a bit lackluster. But I've been enjoying this one so far. Even with the non-Marek thing, like the fact that it amounted to nothing, not nothing essentially, but like I predicted, it was not a big twist theory thing.
Right.
I still enjoyed the episode. I still like the show. It still makes me want to go back and watch Clone Wars and Rebels, which I have not done yet. Time is hard to find these days.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I felt like the very last scene of this episode, which we will get to, really made me want to watch the Ahsoka parts of Rebels.
Yes.
But what I was going to say was that my favorite YouTube channel, I've mentioned multiple times when it comes to Star Wars, is Eckhart's Ladder. And he has a whole video where he says this is like the best episode of a Star Wars show maybe ever, that it's like just as good as any of the other highlights of other shows like The Mandalorian and I guess maybe like Obi-Wan. I have no fucking clue what is actually good. I don't know if he compared any of it to Andor, because I do feel like Andor is just different from everything else. But he was saying that it was so good because it felt the most like Star Wars, or it felt the most like a Star Wars movie.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so you agree. So you're more in the Eckhart's Ladder camp than the John and Mike Bongiorno camp.
Yeah, no. I think this was the when we reviewed Andor, I said, and I repeatedly said, Andor is the non-Star Wars show. This is the Star Wars show. Like this gave you what you expect out of Star Wars, that kind of more fantastical elements. So you have lightsaber battles, you have space battles, and all this kind of actiony, pulpy drama, sort of. And that's what I expect out of Star Wars. And I do think that we do have to keep in mind that this is a TV show and not a movie, and you do have to make certain exceptions for it. But still, it looks fantastic. It really does. Mm-hmm. I think they do a great job with a lot of things on the show. But it doesn't have the budget of a movie.
Yeah.
So, and I think with that in mind, I think they did a fantastic job here. I mean, I really, and really, I think my favorite thing in this episode has been Ray Stevenson.
Oh yes,
he's great.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm continually upset that he's no longer with us. We'll never see this character. I mean, we could see the character again. They could recast. I don't know if it would make feel the same. I mean, he has that. He's a big dude, very imposing, has a very distinct look, which I don't know if would translate with another actor.
Yeah. What have you seen him in besides this? RRR, right?
RRR, that's the thing that really made him pop to me, was that movie. Everything in the movie is very over the top, and he's no exception. He has this one really great line about someone's about to fire a bullet on some tribes person in India in the jungle, and he gives this whole big speech about how much money that bullet cost and how much of it a waste would be, and he says it more than once in the movie, and it kind of becomes like a rallying cry of the heroes by the end. But his delivery of it is great. It's fantastic. He looks like a villain. I have seen him in other things too. I rewatched The Other Guys, which is a favorite movie of mine, with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
Just had it on in the background and he's in that actually too. Kind of a small part. He's kind of like a bodyguard kind of guy in that, but he's popped up in a lot of things. But the things that come to mind the most are the thing that comes to mind the most besides the show is probably RRR, because I've watched that.
What about Punisher Warzone?
Believe it or not, that's one of the few comic movies I have not seen.
Okay. That makes two of us. I actually haven't seen it either. But I know that a lot of people like it because it's just so over the top and gory and ridiculous. It's kind of like the Marvel Max Punisher.
Yeah, I actually really like the Thomas Jane Punisher movie a lot. Okay. And I think I might have been a little angry at the time, and I may have not wanted to see it. But right. I think the three I haven't seen is that Green Lantern and Fan Four Stick.
Oh wow! And see,
I
like,
actually, it used to be Ghost Rider 2, but I've seen that now somehow because Brandon.
yeah, it's funny, right? Because things have changed now. Because having this channel, you kind of have to watch everything because you know me.
Well, no, I would have watched it anyway. I mean, I don't think. I mean, maybe one or two of these Disney Plus shows I might have given up on.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
Even this show, actually, you know, I'm thinking about it. If I was not excited to watch it, but I completely turned around after that first episode. I really liked it a lot, so, and I have been excited to watch it.
yeah. Well, this is bad, man, because I'm in a little bit of a tangent mode here because you just mentioned this Disney Plus shows that you might have given up on. Do you ever still have that feeling that, oh, with these Marvel movies, with the Marvel Disney Plus shows, they're going to start doing this thing right here, and it's going to turn it all around, and the excitement's going to get so big? Do you feel like that ever or no?
Not anymore. I think. I mean, I think the only thing that is left that could have that power is
X-Men.
the X-Men.
Yep.
That's it. Unless they bring back, you know, the main Avengers again.
Yeah.
And together in a capacity, I don't think they'll be able to recapture what they had.
Yeah. Do you think that? Wow, this is totally off of Ahsoka too. Do you think that once they reach that point of the end of Secret Wars, that they'll essentially like reboot everything, and then you'll have like a new Iron Man and a new Thor, and what I was thinking, a new Black Panther? That's T'Challa.
That's a great question. You know, they're clearly making less and less every time they put something out, and I think even with some of the second tier characters, they're kind of running to the end of the lengths of their contracts. So like you're talking Benedict Cumberbatch and Brie Larson, like those types, and I'm sure it would have been Chadwick Boseman at this point too, had he not passed. And that was like their second wave, you know. Like those would be like three of the big characters, and I don't think they landed as well as they wanted. And that's the thing, is they don't have those big things, and they need the big things. So I think they'll give it the shot with X-Men and Fantastic Four, see what happens, see how long they can ride that out. Do they reboot it? I mean, it depends on if how big those things land. If they do, I think they'll just keep going with it until it fizzles out. And then they'll eventually release, less and less, and they'll be smaller and smaller budget, and then it'll just fizzle out. If we ever get a reboot like this, it's going to be after a significant amount of time. I think, I would hope so. Superhero movies have died down a bit, and then the other possibility too, is I keep thinking about, is that, DC is, with James Gunn's kind of take here, they're going to be taking a big swing with the big characters, and I think that's always a possibility that hits off. I think I stand by the fact that these movies are not funded by people like us, like these ultra diehard super fans of these things. I think they're funded by the casual kind of movie where they're like, oh, that looks pretty cool, like, oh, Batman, I know Batman, Superman, I know that. And I think that they have a chance to make a big move if they can, land these movies right, especially with that Superman movie, which is going to be kind of the turning point to me. But that and X-Men on the horizon, and I to a slightly lesser degree, Fantastic Four. Those are the big things that are going to determine how this genre, which, yes, it's a genre at this point, will land.
Yeah. Okay. And kind of just tying it back to Ahsoka, all of this stuff is so affected by the writer's strike and the actor's strike that like everything's getting pushed back. And I'm pretty sure that like Ahsoka is the last thing of Star Wars content that we're getting for a long time.
There's that Skeleton Crew show as well. I don't know how far along that was. Maybe that was done filming. I don't know. I haven't heard about that in a while. And then, did the Acolyte actually get canceled, or is that just? So Skeleton Crew, the Acolyte, both of those are getting pushed forward or moved back, whatever you want to call it. Like they're going to release later than they're supposed to, but they're not canceled or anything like that. I think that Skeleton Crew is completely done filming and everything too. It's just that they want to be able to promote it.
they want the younger actors that are the main characters to sort of be like Stranger Things and kind of have a presence in the press, and so I think that's why they're putting it on hold for now.
Got it. I feel like I might have heard something about Acolyte being shelved, though. I'm not really sure. Maybe I'm just pulling that out of my ass. I don't know.
Yeah.
But either way, yeah, this could be the last thing we see for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, like Andor 2 has been like pushed back, and
yeah, that stopped filming. Yeah. I do know, in terms of the strike, I know AMC worked out some deal with the actors and writers. So I hope that's a step towards everybody kind of working this stuff out sooner rather than later.
Yeah. One of mine and Danny's favorite shows to cover, which is kind of a big hit for our channel, was Interview with the Vampire. And like they're moving forward with that. That's on AMC.
That's good.
Yeah. But boy, am I just fucking everything up here. We're talking about everything besides this episode of Ahsoka. This episode was directed by Peter Ramsey. Every episode's written by Dave Filoni. Peter Ramsey, we've mentioned him before. He's directed other Star Wars episodes. He directed the episode called The Pirate on season 3 of The Mandalorian.
Okay.
And then besides that, though, he was one of the directors on the first Spider-Verse. He directed that movie Rise of the Guardians. He was like a second unit director. Do you know what those are, second unit directors?
Yeah, it's so you can kind of film things at the same time and you don't need the main actors or whatever.
Right. So he was like the second unit director on a lot of these like 90s movies, like the 1998 Godzilla. Oof, that's a little rough. But then Poetic Justice, Tank Girl, Higher Learning. And that's from a very specific time. Remember that, like early 90s?
Yeah, definitely.
and then, like, as a storyboard artist, he's on all these crazy movies. I don't think I mentioned this last time I talked about him, but he was a storyboard artist on Fight Club, Predator 2, the original Mortal Kombat, Men in Black, Independence Day.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is all very 90s.
Yes. And that's just a few of the movies that he did as a storyboard artist. There's a ton of them.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's one of the points that Eckhart's Ladder brought up. He was saying that how good this episode looked. And that's probably one of the main reasons is because they had Peter Ramsey as the director.
Yeah.
The part that and so we're starting to kind of jump around, and obviously spoilers, but the part that I thought was the most visually exciting was when it's called the Eye of Sion, right? The hyperspace.
You just want to say Eye of Sauron, though.
Right. When that made the jump to hyperspace and then the X-Wings like crashed into each other, I thought that looked awesome.
That did. Although I was very confused because I feel like, they, with The Last Jedi, that whole thing with the jumping to hyperspace, destroying the ship. I'm like, how did that not do more damage or something? Yeah.
Annihilate them. Yeah. There's something, I can't remember if it's like a Star Wars comic that I read or a novel. It might have even been a show, but there was something where they explained essentially how that could happen. The thing that's in The Last Jedi. And that's sort of considered like 1,000,000-to-1 shot, like that thing.
Okay.
But that was awesome when they jumped to hyperspace. And then Eckhart's Ladder made this point to say that it was like so powerful that it like ripped a hole in space. Did you see that?
Maybe I didn't notice it. No.
Yeah, I did see like this sort of like blue glow in space where they had, shot through.
I guess that's how they're explaining the pathways of the whales, because this is some kind of extended hyperspace travel that, for this show.
Yeah. So why don't you mentioned Marok at the very beginning of our episode. Why don't we talk about that and what happens there?
Sure. So he's not Mephisto.
Right.
He's not Ezra Bridger. He's not Starkiller. He was just some resurrected zombie from I can't remember her name. The witch lady.
Oh, Elspeth, right?
Morgan Elspeth. Yeah, she's a witch of Dathomir. That's just some witch magic. And he was essentially just a reanimated corpse that turned to dust afterwards. So that fits. That tracks. That makes sense to me. The character had a cool name, it had a cool costume. It's kind of stinks it wasn't more. But that's the way it goes. We can't swing for the fences on every like theory and thing and hunch and speculation. I think things would get stale and boring, even though you might say this is stale and boring, but if everything was that fantastical, it would kind of ruin it when it actually does line up to be that fantastical,
Yes. I think that Andor is a good sign that you can swing for the fences in terms of storytelling, not swing for the fences in terms of reveals. Like, because the reveals are never going to live up to the expectations that we have as fans. And this is just yet another example of that. But the way that you tell a story, even with not that much dialogue, but just with the imagery or the music, like you can swing for the fences on that every single episode and it'll matter.
Yeah, that's why Andor was so good, because it swung to the fences with the tension and conflict. Everything was just fantastic. There was nothing that was lackluster about that show. Everything was so well plotted and thought out, and everything hit eventually. Like everything had a big impact towards the end. Especially the whole prison arc there.
Yes.
With the culminated with that insane speech and the "I can't swim."
Right. I was just thinking about that the other day. Well, that's because so I keep referring back to Eckhart's Ladder. I was going to say, besides Andor, what do you think are some of the great moments of Star Wars Disney Plus shows besides the stuff on Andor?
The Mandalorian season 2 finale
With Luke?
With Luke, but that's one of those kind of Mephisto moments. What I'm going to call. We should trademark that, Mephisto moments.
Yeah.
Where it's like, that was the crazy moment and reveal.
Yes.
What else?
Do you want me to give you one?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe it'll kind of trigger some more memories. But I really am a fan of the moment when Vader's helmet is cracked and he's talking to Obi-Wan. And he says, "You didn't kill Anakin, I did."
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily even like the battle that leads right up to it, but just that moment when his helmet is cracked, I just think that's really great.
Yeah, that was absolutely.
And like even that, it kind of bothers me that battle happened in the first place. But just the way that it was filmed and it was acted, I think it was like really good.
Yeah, and that's what everybody was kind of waiting and expecting to happen. Because we kept seeing flashbacks and we knew Darth Vader was in the show. So you kind of had to have them meet at some point in there.
Yeah. I know that everyone really likes that episode of Book of Boba Fett where he's with the Tusken Raiders and they like.
Well, I think we liked it, and I think like our friend Danny liked it, and but I don't know if people as a whole liked it. Like it had this whole kind of like Dances with Wolves feel, I guess.
Yes.
But I don't know if it's universally liked by the fandom.
Okay. I know that Danny's friend was like, that was one of the best experiences of my life. Like he said it was like the best experience of his life. I was like, okay, sure. I'm just trying to think of other examples that were really, there's stuff in the first season of The Mandalorian I think is really good. There's stuff with like Mandalorian and Grogu when like it's just not this like established thing where everyone knows who Grogu is, where it's just like this sort of mystery about him and they're bonding kind of like father and son.
Yeah, anything the father and son stuff. Anytime they get reunited after a time,
yeah,
it's always pretty big.
Yeah,
like the end of the first season, where he takes the mask off for him.
Yeah.
Oh no, that wasn't for him. That was for with the robot.
He was like hurt, and the robot. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was good, but like you already mentioned the Luke scene, but at the very end when he takes off his helmet to say goodbye to Grogu, that's really good too.
Yes. I think I'm mixing up those two things there, but yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I showed that to my wife, and like she doesn't like any of this stuff, but she liked that scene. She thought that was really well done. So there's obviously moments, and maybe we should bring it back to the moments in this particular episode. You said that there wasn't really more to Marok, but I saw someone say that his fighting style was similar to the Inquisitor that went after Ahsoka in that episode of Tales of the Jedi. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you think that may be the reanimated corpse of that Inquisitor?
Yeah, I was thinking that actually be kind of an interesting twist, and I think that probably as they were setting up the Ahsoka show, Dave Filoni was also working on Tales of the Jedi, and they're like, oh, we could kind of make this sort of connect somehow.
That's kind of cool, I suppose. I would like to go back and check that Tales episode for that.
Yeah.
Just to see.
Well, what's interesting about that Tales show is that I don't know. There's like 6 episodes, I think, and at least 3 of them are about Ahsoka and like different stages of her life. And then this show is like the oldest we've seen her yet.
Yeah. Oh.
So it's like this big epic of Ahsoka's life. You know, Dave Filoni's star creation that he made.
Yeah, and I think I think it's just still interesting to see. Oh, I'm cutting out, or you're cutting out? Oh no.
I think it was you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah,
I can hear you.
Okay. You can't see me?
We're good?
We're good? Okay.
I see you. I'm doing awkward sign language. Yes.
Yeah, we're good. So I think it's still a worthwhile thing to have this show and to show where this character was, or how this character, what this character did after all these big events happened, like from the original trilogy and all that. So I think it's almost like, having these prequel shows is almost problematic to have characters like this, because you're like, well, where the hell were they during this? But
Right.
I think it's satisfying to see that they're still there. I still would like to know what Ahsoka was doing during, the original trilogy, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's satisfying enough to see where they end off. I mean, you kind of just want to know where things end,
Yeah, of course.
with anything,
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think that they're kind of implying that she's been really searching as to like where Ezra went and like where Grand Admiral Thrawn is, and that she's been connected to this witch, this Morgan Elspeth. Like that's kind of what was occupying her during the events of like A New Hope and Empire.
Yeah, but think how many years that's supposed to be,
Yeah.
So that's a long time. We're talking. I mean, how many years would you say that the original trilogy takes place over?
So
that would happen before it. It would have started. All this stuff would have started before that, and then so it's got to be at least 10 years, 15 years.
Yeah, because I think it's between A New Hope and Empire, it's like 2.5 years, and then between Empire and Jedi, it's like less than a year.
Yeah, and then there's the time between after Jedi and where this begins.
Yeah, which is 5 years.
Yeah.
So, okay. I mean, obviously she's been MIA for a while, but she also has to be MIA because she's a Jedi and they're like getting viciously hunted after the fall of the Republic, right?
Yeah, but when you see, I guess that's true. And now maybe you're just seeing them. She's a little more open about her travels because of the New Republic and the Empire is gone. But at the same time, like you would think that some of them would have. Like, when you watch Star Wars, the original trilogy, you're made to think that there isn't anybody else left out there,
I know.
But all this other stuff they've made, it seems there's still a lot of Jedi out there,
Yeah, there's like 100. There's
like 100. It's like, did none of them come show up? Like,
yeah.
So
I know.
It's a little weird, but you have to suspend your disbelief, I suppose, because when they made those movies, they didn't have anything in mind, and then it became a huge hit, and they wanted to expand. I get all that, but well, ultimately, what I was trying to get at was, it's nice. I'm still glad the show exists.
Yeah,
I like to know how things end. Have more resolution than you're sometimes given.
Do you think that Ahsoka could potentially live up until the sequel trilogy era?
Yeah, I don't know anything about the lifetime life expectancy of her race. So
yeah, they're Torgruta, I think, is what they're called.
Yeah, something like that. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, maybe I could definitely see like that character just being around for a long time. What's weird is that like they kill off the Jedi Order in Episode 3, then Luke kind of builds it back up, but then it's killed off again by the time we get to Episode 7.
Yeah, but then again, if she's still around during the sequel trilogies, like where was she there either?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Where is she for that? Right. Yeah. And I mean, obviously, like she knows Luke and stuff,
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's get back to this episode though. So you have this moment that I thought. Okay, so first off, there's a lot of lightsaber battles. whatever her name is. Her name's like Tin Hottie.
Shin.
Shin Hottie, right? It's only a little bit more, or not as ridiculous, right? So she's fighting Sabine, and then Ahsoka's fighting Balin, and both battles are good. What's cool about the Sabine and Shin battle is that Sabine's not really trying to be a Jedi and use the Force. She's kind of using her Mandalorian abilities, and
Yes.
and it's clear that she's just not a match for Shin.
Yes, although I did really appreciate her kind of feint with using the Force, and then she fired the wrist rocket.
Yeah. Agreed. And it was a really good moment actually, where she's like saying to Ahsoka, like, "You go, I will fight her." And it's essentially she's kind of making peace with she's probably gonna die.
Yeah, well, I don't know if she thought that. I think maybe she had a little more confidence in herself, but she must have known the risk of it. Yes.
Okay. So then you have this other battle between Ahsoka and Balin, and he's just like so big. Like, you talked about how big that actor is, Ray Wise, and he's got this kind of attack. It's kind of similar to Darth Vader, because Darth Vader's so big and tall and powerful too. But there's things even like leading up to that battle that I liked. I liked him sitting with his like cloak on. That felt very Jedi-like, and he's like kind of just waiting for her. And I like him like slowly unhooking his lightsaber. It just reminds me of a lot of the battles that we've seen in the movies.
Yeah, I think just the most interesting thing about him is that he's clearly like he's not exactly a Sith. You know, he's just kind of like a fallen Jedi. He's just somebody who just kind of like gave up, sort of.
Yeah.
But he's not like fully evil. You know.
No.
And I think that makes him more interesting. And I really liked, his speech to Sabine. You know, just is like, hey, like, you want this, I'm willing to help you get it. You know,
right? That was the best part of the episode for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to watch things like that, to have the heroes tested and to see them actually give in temporarily.
Right. I wasn't expecting her to do it. I was kind of thinking that like Ahsoka was going to like jump up and chop off his hand or something.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah.
So then he knocks Ahsoka off this cliff. It looks like she fell into the water. She ends up in this place called the World Between Worlds. And then, are you familiar with that at all?
I am not familiar with that at all.
Okay. Can I spoil a little bit of something
for
you?
Go for it.
Okay. So in Rebels, Ahsoka shows up, and she's obviously like older than she is on Clone Wars. And she's with the team. She's with Ezra and Sabine, everyone that we've seen on this show. And I think also, what's his face might be around too. Freddie Prinze Jr.'s guy, right? Kanan.
Kanan, whatever it is.
Yeah, he might have been dead by then. I don't know. Maybe not. But what happens is they discover this thing. It's like it's called the World Between Worlds. And it's this weird other dimension that's connected to the Force. Now, what's weird about it is you walk through it and there's these pathways like you saw at the very end of this episode. And then there's like little portals that open up into different periods of time. And there's different like Star Wars references that they show throughout that episode. And at one point, there's a point where Ahsoka's fighting Darth Vader in Rebels, and you think that she's dead or that she's going to die. And then in a future episode, there's a part where Ezra like grabs her and pulls her into that world within worlds. And so she like doesn't get killed by Darth Vader. So it's almost like time travel.
Okay.
And so now she's in that spot again with Anakin. And that's very, very interesting to me because I only know this based on things I've heard from like Star Wars YouTube channels. I haven't watched the episodes, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder, like, do things like manifest, like, like spirits, or like you just kind of have visions, or is that literally Anakin that's there?
Yeah, from some other previous point in time.
Right. And it's interesting because if that's Anakin, it's obviously Anakin from like Revenge of the Sith or before, and he recognizes her, but she's like far older.
Yeah.
So however they interact, he would have like knowledge of what was going to happen.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, the way you explained it, that's what it sounds like to me. And I mean, watching it and not knowing it, I thought it was some kind of because she said something. He said something like, "You're not supposed to be here yet," or something, and that's
Right.
kind of like a, you see someone right before you're going to cross over when you're about to die, and say, "Oh, go back. It's not your time." That's the impression that I got from it when watching
Right.
it. The way you're explaining it, it sounds to me like he was in there at some point, and this actually happened. So,
Yeah.
but it's just, I guess the question is how she got in there, because you just see her go off the cliff, and you don't see her again until this.
Right. Right. It was really good editing too, because they showed the water.
Oh, that was a beautiful shot. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. But here's the thing, and this might be a good point to kind of bring it all to a close here. What's interesting about this is I thought, okay, well, that's kind of intriguing if she runs into Anakin and she's an adult and he's from the age of Revenge of the Sith, and they're able to interact and maybe she can tell him some stuff. That's interesting. But then I'm pretty sure it was Eckhart's Ladder. He pointed out that Anakin doesn't have his lightsaber. He doesn't have the Anakin Skywalker lightsaber. He has Darth Vader's lightsaber.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, what is that? You know?
Yeah, interesting. And it's also kind of, in a way, it's disheartening to know that he would, because he obviously becomes a villainous character who does many horrible things,
right?
For a good chunk of his life there. And if he's already past that point and he has the Vader saber and he's on that path, it's just to know that a moment like this wouldn't alter any of that. Is disheartening to hear.
So that's a whole thing that gets brought up in Star Wars discussions all the time of like Vader, he's there when they destroy Alderaan, so he kills a whole planet of people. He murders many, many people in decades worth of just killing people
in very violent ways.
Right. And then he kills the Emperor, and that sort of redeems him to where he can go to like Force Ghost Heaven right at the end.
Yeah.
The thing is that there's concept art for The Force Awakens from an earlier script, which sounds like a much more intriguing movie, where there's Anakin as a Force ghost, but the Force ghost morphs into Vader. And it's like he's kind of like in his afterlife, or after he's dead, he's still sort of dealing with the fact that he was Darth Vader. And I really like that idea of like he's almost like having to redeem himself after his death because of all the things he did while he was alive.
Yeah, there's I've probably referenced this before. There's some of the only Star Wars comics that I own actually are Star Wars Infinities, which are just kind of what ifs on the original trilogy. And one of them is like, what if what was the starting point of it? But essentially there's this redeemed Vader that had some change of heart earlier on, and he survives past the end of Return of the Jedi. And he's got this awesome white suit that I actually have a figure of over there.
That's cool, man.
Things like that are interesting. Redemption arcs like that.
Yeah, I just think so some people, when they talk about this particular subject, they say that almost like Anakin and Darth Vader are two different characters, and that like Darth Vader dies at the end of Return of the Jedi, the Sith are destroyed. And that like Anakin becomes Anakin again, and that's why he can like be a Force ghost and be a good guy, right?
I'm going to see that, I suppose, but to me, it's like it was just poor timing with the creation of the stories. It's like they did one thing, they gave you this one impression, and they wanted to give you this other one, but kind of marrying those two things was a lot harder than it should have been, I guess. Having him be such a sympathetic character early on, I guess, kind of made it problematic, especially using him so much in these cartoons, honestly. If it was just a movie, it might not have been as bad. But with the cartoon where he's a hero for so much longer, it makes the turn all the worse. It's harder to believe almost, You do so many good things and then do so many horrible things.
Right. Well, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because what kind of backs up the point that these people made is that when they have the special edition or the whatever like newer version that George Lucas put out, they have Anakin as Hayden Christensen with Alec Guinness and with Yoda at the end, and so that kind of backs up the idea of like he's back to that good Anakin from before Vader.
Yeah, but part of me still likes it when he was the older.
Oh, me too.
Um,
100%. Yes.
yeah, that's probably just a nostalgia kind of thing, and maybe I'm softening to it now because I really do enjoy seeing Hayden Christensen
Right.
now, like
Right.
reprising this role. Like I really like it a lot.
Right.
So I think that's kind of makes it, where I feel maybe they're both pretty cool.
Both versions are cool now. Yeah. So this was episode 4, and there's 8 altogether, right?
Yeah. So I mean, they better give us Thrawn real soon.
Well, what are they going to do with Anakin now, though? What's going to happen?
I feel like Anakin's just going to be in this one episode, and that's it. I would this in 5. Ahsoka's going to get out of there, and that's going to be it. I don't think I can't imagine him being in the entire episode.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just an extended scene or something. But I feel like this is one and done. I mean, well, 2 and done if you want to count this episode. But he's not going to be a focal point moving forward towards the end of the show. And we're frozen. Who's frozen? Is it me or is it Pete? Are we back? Am I just back? Don't make me end the show by myself.
Oh, hello?
I'm here. I see you. Okay.
Okay. Awkwardness. This is going to make for a great podcast.
Yeah. Send me the audio. I'll cut it out.
No, it's all good. It's all good. What we were talking about Anakin, right? And then we were talking about what's going to happen with Anakin.
Oh yes, I think he's just going to be in this next episode. That's going to be it. This is not going to be a long, drawn out thing. If you want to count this 4th episode as 1 appearance and 5 as 2, that'll be it. The max.
Okay. It's funny. I read this interesting headline, but right before we recorded, that there's going to be a limited theatrical release of this next episode. Yeah. Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. You might have to Google that once we're done recording.
Yeah, I have not heard that, and that's an unprecedented thing. So that makes me very curious of what's going to happen next episode.
Yeah, man. I know. I'm pretty
Is
excited.
there a longer runtime this next episode? Or
it does have a longer runtime too. Yes.
Like over an hour longer?
I don't know. I don't know how long it's supposed to be, but it is supposed to be longer than these last few episodes.
That's intriguing.
Yeah, man. And that's a good stopping point. We should probably stop before we start freezing again and awkwardly be like, "Am I here? Are you there?"
Assume that the Han Solo carbonite pose.
Yeah. Nice, man. Well, thank you. I always enjoy talking about this stuff with you. I liked this episode better than I think the previous 3. What about you?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yes.
Yeah. So hopefully it'll just continue to get better for the rest of the series. But Brian and I will be here next Thursday to talk about Ahsoka episode 5, and then we have other things coming up like University V or whatever. Gen V. Yeah, and a whole bunch of other comic book related stuff that's coming our way. If you guys haven't subscribed to Comic Books Transformed, please do. And we will always be here to talk about Star Wars and comic book adaptations.